ומבייס אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך לך מארצך וממולדתך ומבייס אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך מה שהיה היה העיקר להתחיל מההתחלה מה שהיה היה העיקר לא לפחד כלל Sometimes you gotta leave the past behind Sometimes you gotta leave the past behind
Sometimes you gotta leave the past behind. Sings Joey Newcomb, his song Lech Lecha. The words spoken by God to Abraham. Leave your father's land to a land that I will show you. Sometimes you gotta have faith and go. That's from his album, How Are You, Reb Yit. How's everybody doing? Let's light up the darkness. I hope everyone had... Yes, dear.
Mic?
What? Oh, the mic. Thank you. Nina's right on top of it. All right. I hope everyone had a beautiful, beautiful Hanukkah. Today was Zois Hanukkah, the 8th day of Hanukkah. That name is taken from the Torah portion that we read on the 8th day of Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah, but in the Torah, what they're talking about is Hanukkah means a dedication. It was the dedication of the tabernacle in the wilderness when all the princes of the various tribes brought the offerings. How's everybody doing? Who's with us as we get it going? On a Monday night. Stephen in New Hampshire, Eve in South Ontario, Hannah in New York, Melissa in Great Neck, Yehuda in South Carolina, Gwen in Michigan, James in Indianapolis. Eve says, I love this song, so peaceful in my soul. Paula in Chicago, Sharon in New Jersey, John in Sedona. Alicio from Rosemead, California, Lucy in Minnesota, Bill in Mid-Missouri, Renee in Indiana, Shandora in the Bronx, Nancy, North Carolina. Renee's the one who called the sound check. Thank you so much. Bill also calling me on it. Christo in Lubbock, Sharon, Lech Lecha, literally go to yourself, just so. Christo loves that Haftorah reading for the Shabbos of Hanukkah. What was it? Zechariah, right? Zechariah, the Lord will dwell in our midst. That was a beautiful Haftorah. Sam in Virginia. Great to have you all with us. Today's episode of AT Daily is sponsored by Seme Jackie Dewey's Cooper and Mark, I assume, in memory of Mark's grandparents, Frank and Goldie Greenbaum, whose yard sites are observed this week. Frank on the 28th of Kislev and Goldie on the 3rd of Tevis, which is right now. We've just entered the 3rd day of Tevis. And they were instrumental in helping Mark follow the Jewish faith. My pals, Mark and Seme, may you be showered in blessings. May Mark's grandparents, Frank and Goldie, have an even higher elevation in the world of souls, thanks to the merit of our learning today, which you are dedicating in their memory. And may you and Mark be showered in blessings, even more than you could possibly believe. And we all say amen. Thank you for enabling us to share more Torah with more people. Folks, we're in our annual campaign. I know I mention it every day. I try to make it as brief as possible, but this is the moment. All donations are doubled while we're in our annual campaign now in December. And help us build the AT app. I know that the Facebook feed has been glitchy as heck. I don't know what it is. It's not from our end, but it keeps seizing. It's not what we're putting out there. It's just Facebook throttling down video from pages like ours. we gotta have the AT app so that we're not depending on this, neither on your end or ours, so that you can get our stream pristine, high def, uninterrupted org. Let me turn that to do not disturb. There. Okay. All right. Hopefully everything is running as it should and you are receiving the stream as best as possible. Okay. Where are we holding? This is Daf Kuf Dalet, page 24 here in Tractate Tainus, the 10th volume of the Talmud. Generally speaking, the laws of public fast. We're in chapter 3. There's only one Mishna in this chapter. Generally talking about the kinds of calamities that would lead the sages in ancient Israel to proclaim a public fast so that we could perhaps avert or lessen the danger or the calamity to the Jewish community. We picked this up at the very bottom of the B side of page 23, and we've been talking about various sages who were so saintly that their merit would protect a community, the community that they lived in. Sometimes their merit was so great that we didn't need to invoke the merit of great sages. The community was able to invoke, not even knowingly, the merit of simple people who lived in their midst. And who were just so kind, and they would take care of their neighbors, take care of their fellow in such a way that God from heaven smiled down on that community and spared it from a drought or from an invasion, a plague, some other calamity that was affecting other areas, but one particular area not, because of the merit of somebody who lived there and their righteous deeds. So we picked this up at the bottom of 23b. The Gemara cites another story involving a complaint. Yes, so we saw at the end of yesterday that Rabbi Yitzhak Eliashav was one of these holy men who was able to grant people, could pray on behalf of people who were in need, and their desires would be granted. But after a while, he realized that when he prayed on behalf of people and they got what they wanted, in the end, it wasn't so good for them. Be careful what you wish for, and what they wished for ended up bringing them problems, and then he stopped doing it because it just wasn't worth it. So now the Gemara cites another story involving a complaint. Rabbi Yosei bar Avin was frequently found before Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat. And at some point, he left him and he came to study before Rav Ashi, who did not recognize him, right? So Rav Ashi, teaching in his city, in his yeshiva, and a newcomer is Rabbi Yosei bar Avin, who left his own teacher, Rabbi Yosei of Yokrat. And now Rav Ashi doesn't recognize Rabbi Yosei bar Avin. So one day, Rabbi Yosei bar Avin heard Rav Ashi studying and reciting the following statement. Shmuel said, with regard to one who removes a fish from the sea on Shabbos, when an area on the skin of the fish the size of a selah coin has dried up, now this person becomes liable for violating the prohibition against shechting an animal, against slaughtering an animal on Shabbos. A fish in that condition cannot survive. So you just pick up a fish, right? You haven't violated Shabbos, but you take that fish out of the water for long enough that its skin starts to dry, a spot the size of a coin. Well, now you've killed the fish, right? He's not going to survive even if you throw him back. And now you've committed, it's not murder because you killed an animal, but you slaughtered an animal on Shabbos, and that is definitely violating Shabbos. Okay, so Rabbi Yosei bar Avin heard Rav Ashi teach this teaching in the name of Shmuel. And Rabbi Yosei bar Avin said to Rav Ashi, and let the master say that this is the case, provided that the skin that dried is between its fins. Meaning if part of its skin dried, but not in the area between the fins, you could throw the fish back and it will survive. And so, Rav Ashi says, wait a minute, who is this in my class? And Rav Ashi said to him, and doesn't the master, meaning this, he's talking back to the sage in his class, and doesn't the master maintain that Rabbi Yosei ben Rabbi Avin said this ruling? Why didn't you state it in his name? And Rabbi Yosei bar Avin said to him, "That's me. I am Rabbi Yosei, the son of Rabbi Avin." Rav Ashi said to him, "Well, and didn't the master sit before and frequent the study hall of Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat? What are you doing in my study hall? You're a famous sage, but the student of Yosei from Yokrat. Why did you come to me? You have a great teacher where you are from." And Rabbi Yosei bar Avin said to him, "Yes." I'm sorry, and what is the reason? "Yes, that's me. I used to study with him." And says Rav Ashi, "And what is the reason that the master left his teacher, and came here to me?" And Rabbi Yosei bar Avin said to him, "I was concerned and departed because my teacher is so severe and unforgiving. He is a man who has no mercy on his own son and no mercy on his daughter. How then could he have mercy on me?" And the Gemara asks, what is the incident involving his son that shows that Rabbi Yosei of Yokrat had no mercy on his son? And what is the incident? One day, Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat hired day laborers to work his field. It grew late, and he did not bring them food. The workers said to the son of Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat, "We are starving." And they were sitting under a fig tree. So the son said, fig tree, yield your fruits so that my father's workers may eat." And the fig tree yielded fruit, and they ate. Right? So the merit of the son of Yosei from Yokrat was so great that he was able to talk to this tree and have it yield fruit. I mean, I'm assuming that it wasn't just like the fruit was ready to be picked, like it needed to mature and ripen and then be ready for eating, and he made that happen. I guess with a prayer, I don't know about just addressing the tree. At any rate, they ate fruit from the tree. In the meantime, his father, Yosei from Yokrat, came and he said to the workers, "Do not be angry with me for being late, as I was engaged in a mitzvah, and until just now I was traveling for that purpose, and I couldn't get here any sooner." They said to him, "May the merciful one satisfy you, just as your son satisfied us and gave us food." And he said to them, "From where did he find food to give you?" And they said, "Well, such and such an incident just occurred." And Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat said to his son, "My son, you troubled your creator to cause the fig to yield its fruit, not in its proper time. So too you will die young." And indeed, his son died before his time. Now, this is a very troubling story. I mean, so the son of Yosei of Yokrat had such a merit that, yes, it was a prayer, right? He could pray to God that the tree should yield fruit now so that the workers could be fed who deserved to be fed. His father comes home and he says, "You troubled God to produce a miracle that the tree should yield fruit before its time." Now, I don't think that he was cursing his son. And therefore, and because you did this, you should be cursed to die before your time. Rather, I think what he's saying is, you troubled God to perform a miracle for you. This is going to diminish your merits in this world. And it may be that some miracle that would have saved your life and enabled you to live longer isn't going to happen for you, and you're going to live shorter. Or, maybe it is some kind of a curse. At any rate, this boy died before his time. And the Gemara asks, what is the incident involving his daughter? So Rabbi Yosei of Yokrat had a very beautiful daughter. One day he saw a certain man piercing a hole in the hedge surrounding his property and looking at his daughter. Rabbi Yosei said to him, "What is this?" The man said to him, "My teacher." So it's one of his students. "My teacher, if I have not merited to take your daughter in marriage, shall I not at least merit to look at her?" This might be a smart alecky answer. This is a guy who's a peeping Tom and he wants to look at the guy's daughter. Let us assume that it is not to see her, undressed or something like that, because she's not going to be outside undressed. He merely wants to get a look at this daughter, very modest woman who, probably was always veiled or didn't go out much. And he wanted to look at her. Rabbi Yosei said to his daughter, "My daughter, you are causing people distress. Return to your dust and let people no longer stumble into sin due to you." I mean, I can't stand this story. It's so difficult. It's like he's saying that, my offspring are leading Torah students to stumble in the matter of, gazing at a woman in a way that they shouldn't. So rather than scold the Torah student for doing that, he says, my daughter shouldn't even be in this world. And then she dies. I mean, he just says to her, return to your dust and let people no longer stumble into sin due to you. That's what he said to her. No outcome is listed. God willing, nothing happened to her because of these words. But the Gemara relates another story involving Rabbi Yosei from Yokrat. He had a certain donkey that people hired each day for work. In the evening, they would send it back with the money for its hire on its back, and the animal would go to its owner's house. But if they added or subtracted from the appropriate sum, the donkey would not go. The donkey could tell whether the correct money was on its back after it had been hired out for the day. One day, someone forgot a pair of sandals on the donkey, and it did not move until they removed the sandals from its back, after which it went off. Now, this third story, added to the first two, it's to tell us that this person, Yosei of Yokrat, was so scrupulously honest that there was an aura, that there was like a circle of honesty around him. And he just, wouldn't want anyone to in any way be hurt by his actions, unless it's his children. No one should bet in that he shouldn't benefit, right, without paying for in any way from other people. No mistake could be made in his favor. He's just a person who just wants to obey the letter of the law perfectly, right? And the Gemara cites more, and then that's it. The Gemara moves on to other stories about other individuals. So, it's unclear to me how the Gemara, right, Rav Ashi and Ravina, who edited the Gemara, how do they feel about the actions of this Rabbi Yosei? Is he someone to be emulated or admired in his high degree of honesty and modesty? Or is he someone who took it a little bit too far? Well, hard to say. Now the Gemara cites more stories about miracles that occurred to righteous individuals. Whenever the charity collectors would see Elazar of the village of Birta, they would hide from him. As any money Elazar had with him, he would give them. And they did not want to take all his property. One day Elazar went to the market to purchase what he needed for his daughter's dowry. His daughter's getting married, and so he's going to purchase the things that he needs to give her so that she can set up her home. The charity collectors saw him and they hid from him because they know that this guy, whenever he has an opportunity to give charity, he will give everything he's got on him. Even if he's involved in purchasing the necessities for his daughter's dowry, he would give everything away to a charity collector. So they ran away from him. But he went and ran after them, saying to them, I adjure you, right? I make you swear. Tell me, in what mitzvah are you engaged? And they said to him, so we're collecting money for the wedding of an orphan boy and an orphan girl. He said to them, I swear by the temple service that they take precedence over my daughter. He took everything he had with him and he gave it to them, to the charity collectors. And he was left with one single dinar, one coin, with which he bought himself wheat. And he then ascended to his house and threw it into the granary. Elazar's wife came and said to her daughter, what has your father brought? And the girl said to her mother, well, whatever he brought, he threw into the granary. So the mother went to open the door of the granary and saw that the granary, right, a silo where they store grain, was full of wheat, so much so that it was coming out through the doorknob, and the door would not open due to the incredible amount of wheat that was stored inside. The granary had miraculously been completely filled by the small amount of wheat that he purchased for 1 dinar and placed inside. And Elazar's daughter went to the study hall and said to her father, come and see what your, and it's a beautiful name of God that she uses. Instead of saying, come and see what your God has performed for you. But the way she refers to God is, come and see what your He who loves you, the Almighty, meaning the Almighty, has performed for you. And he said to her, I swear by the temple service, as far as you are concerned, this wheat is consecrated property, and you have a share in it only as one of the poor Jews. And he said this because he did not want to benefit from a miracle. Right? Because he gave everything away, a miracle was performed for him, and the silo was filled with grain. But he didn't want to even benefit from that in order to now provide the daughter with a beautiful dowry. Clearly, that's what God intended for him to do. He gave away what should have been for her dowry. And then in return, God performed a miracle and filled his silo. And he still doesn't want to benefit from the miracle. We see this theme several times now. The really righteous, tzaddikim, right? The righteous people in our history, these Torah scholars, saintly Torah scholars, they never want to benefit from a miracle because it reduces their merit in this world. They want their full reward in the next world so that they should be at the highest possible level, as close as possible to the heavenly throne, studying in the heavenly yeshiva, as it were, in the front row. That's what they're looking for. And what does it say, right, about, there's two notes from Rav Steinsaltz about this Elazar of Birta. The later commentaries ask, the Gemara states elsewhere that an ordinance was enacted in Usha that even one who wishes to be liberal in his contributions to charity should not give away more than 1/5, 20% of his assets, lest he himself become financially dependent upon others. How then could Elazar of Birta give away all he possessed to charity? Right? So remember that, there's a limit to what you should give away, particularly if in giving away, because you're feeling, this great wave of piety and you want to give more to charity, but if in the end you impoverish yourself by doing that, then you're going to become dependent on the charity of others, and now you've definitely gone too far. And that's why the sages in another place ruled that you should not give away more than 20%. 10% is the normal amount if you're feeling especially generous and righteous, so you give away 20% of your assets or of your income as it comes in. So how then could Elazar of Birta give away everything he possessed? Well, some note that there is no difficulty according to the opinion of the Rambam, Maimonides, who writes in his commentary on the Mishna that although one is not supposed to donate to the poor more than 1/5 of his assets, he is permitted to do so as an act of piety. And it should be noted that elsewhere the Rambam writes that giving away more than 1/5 of one's assets is an act of folly rather than an act of piety. So even though the Rambam says in one place in his writings, well, you could do that as a tremendous act of piety, but in another place, Maimonides' writings, he says, no, it's bad. It's not pious, it's foolish. Do not do that. Some commentaries suggest that the ordinance of Usha was the subject of a dispute among the Tanaim, the rabbis of the Mishnah, and the Elazar of Birta follows the opinion of the Tana, who maintains that one may give away more than 1/5 of his assets to charity, provided he keeps a minimal amount for himself. And on this thing that as one of the poor Jews, where he says to his daughter, you cannot, sell grain from our miraculously filled silo so that you can have a proper dowry, because you can't benefit. I don't want to benefit from the miracle, and therefore, you benefiting from me would be like me benefiting from the miracle. Rashi and others explain that Elazar of Birta did not want his daughter to purchase her dowry with grain because he did not want to profit from a miracle. However, this entails a difficulty, for in that case, how did he allow himself to derive any sort of benefit from the grain? He can't even eat it. What are you going to do with a silo full of grain if you're not going to allow yourself to benefit from it at all? What are you going to do with it? Is he going to give away all of it? Reward for his righteous behavior in this world, as it would diminish his reward in the world to come. He didn't want to diminish his reward in this world. He didn't want to receive a reward for righteous behavior in this world because it would diminish his reward in the world to come. Once he dedicated the grain to charity, his daughter, being poor herself, had a right to a portion of it just like any other pauper. So actually, by saying that, he's allowing her to benefit from it, we already see that he's giving away so that people, the orphan boy and the orphan girl could have their wedding ceremony and have a dowry for them. Now that he's given everything away, he's poor. It's okay. So now his daughter can benefit from the grain in the silo like any other poor girl who is getting married. That's an interesting way to look at this story. The Gemara returns to the topic of fasting for rain. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who edited the Mishnah, decreed a fast and prayed for mercy, but rain did not come. He said, lamenting, how great is the difference between the prophet Shmuel, Samuel of Ramah, for whom rain fell, even when he prayed for it in summer, and myself, Yehuda ben Gamliel. Woe to the generation that is stuck with this leadership. Woe to him in whose days this has occurred. And he grew upset, right? He said, I am the leader of Israel right now. They don't have a prophet like Samuel in the times of Samuel, in the times of prophets, right? And there's no more prophets in this era. Woe to Israel that, they have a leader like me, that when I pray for rain, even during the rainy season, the rain doesn't come. And he was just so upset. What does it say? He grew upset and the rain came, right? So he prayed for the rain, it didn't come. He was brokenhearted that his merit wasn't enough to bring rain for the land, and then the rain came. It was like God took note of his tears. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish is Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, of the fast the day before, right? When you take on a fast, you have to declare that you're going to fast by the time of Mincha, the afternoon prayer on the day before the fast. So they declared a fast, but these two sages didn't hear that the fast had been declared. And when they informed them, Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, what are we to do? We did not accept this fast upon ourselves the evening before, and a fast must be accepted in the afternoon service of the day preceding the fast. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, we are drawn after the community, and therefore when the Nasi declares a public fast, there is no need for an individual to accept it upon himself the day before. You don't have to declare that you're going to fast when you're joining in a communal fast. It's enough that it's been announced, now you join the communal fast. A fast was declared in the house of the Nasi, for the members of the household of the Nasi, but the rain did not come. Oshaya, the youngest member of the group of sages, taught them a baraisa. It is written, then it shall be, if it shall be committed in error by the congregation, it being hidden from their eyes. Right? So this is a law in the book of Numbers that says how to handle when the leadership of the community misinterprets a law of the Torah and causes the people of Israel to sin because they received the law wrong. They received a mistaken ruling from the leadership. And then how do you handle that situation? He's citing this law when the members of the household of the Nasi are taking upon themselves a fast to try to bring the rain. Right? And he's saying to them, well, you guys are not, you're not all that. Right? There's something lacking in you. So you taking on a fast is not going to bring the rain for the community. And Oshaya continued, there is a parable that illustrates this, involving a bride who is in her father's home and has not yet been seen by her bridegroom. As long as her eyes are beautiful, so her body need not be examined, as certainly she is beautiful. However, if her eyes are bleary, her entire body requires examination. So too, if the leaders of the generation are flawed, it is a sign that the entire generation is unworthy. He's not even saying to them there's something wrong with you. He's saying to them, you prayed for rain, you the leaders, your whole household, you fasted and prayed for rain. The rain didn't come. He's not saying that it's because of you and that you're lacking or that something's wrong with you. It might be that the reason you're unable to bring the rain is because the whole generation is faulty, right? The merit of the generation is great. I mean, the merit of the generation is low. Now, by means of this parable, says Rav Steinsaltz, Oshaya was hinting that the rain was withheld from the entire nation due to the evil committed by the household of the Nasi. So I got it wrong. I read this earlier, I misunderstood. Right? So he's hinting by quoting this passage, no, that it is them. They are not all that. Okay, so I guess I had it right the first time. So the servants of the Nasi came and placed a scarf around his neck and tormented him as punishment for insulting the house of the Nasi. They were beating him up. So his townsmen said to them, "Let him be, as he also causes us pain with his harsh reproof. But since we see that all his actions are for the sake of heaven, we do not say anything to him, and we let him be. And you too should let him be." Take the rebuke. The simple townspeople are saying to the high and mighty household of the Nasi, the head of the Sanhedrin, hey, he rebukes us, he rebukes you, take the rebuke. Because this guy is very holy and he's only issuing these statements because we need to hear it. New subject. The Gemara relates, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, right? So the grandfather of Yehuda Nasiya, this is Yehuda Hanasi, Rebbe, known as Rebbe, who edited the Mishnah. So Rebbe declared a fast, but rain did not come. Ilfa, we read about Ilfa a few days ago. He was the one that went off and did business when Rabbi Yochanan went back and became the head of the yeshiva. But Ilfa was a tremendous scholar in his own right. He didn't forget his learning when he went off and did some business. So Ilfa descended to lead the service before him, before Rebbe. And some say it was Rabbi Ilfi. And he recited, "He who makes the wind blow," and the wind blew. And he continued to recite, "He who makes the rain come," right? This is the passage that we add in the rainy season when we change the Amidah for the summer, Morid HaGeshem, etc. Where is he? So he who makes the rain come, and then the rain came. So Rebbe said to him, "What are your good deeds, in the merit of which your prayers were answered so speedily?" And Ilfa said to him, or perhaps it was Rabbi Ilfi, but the one answered to Rebbe, "Well, I live in an impoverished city in which there is no wine for Kiddush or Havdalah." Right? The Kiddush, we bring in Shabbos with wine, and Havdalah, we say goodbye to Shabbos with wine. So I go to the effort of bringing the residents wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, and I thereby enable them to fulfill their obligation. And in reward for this mitzvah, my prayers for rain were answered, right? So one who enables other Jews to fulfill their obligations by giving them what they need, in this case, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, it's a tremendous merit. And the Gemara relates a similar incident. Rav happened to come to a certain place where he decreed a fast, but rain did not come. The prayer leader descended to lead the service before him and recited Mashiv HaRuach, who makes the wind blow. And then the wind blew, right? And then he continued, Morid HaGeshem, who makes the rain fall. And the rain came. So Rav said to him, "What are your good deeds that God answers your prayers so quickly?" And he said to him, "I am a teacher of children, and I teach the Bible to the children of the poor, just like I teach the children of the rich. And if there is anyone who cannot pay, I do not take anything from him. And I have a fish pond, and any child who neglects his studies, I bribe him with the fish and calm him and soothe him until he comes and reads," right? So a teacher has to be so comforting to the students, has to connect with them. Even to this day in synagogue, there's a tradition to give the kids candy so that they enjoy themselves and have good associations with Torah learning. And you really have to go out of your way to soothe them so that they're ready to learn. If a kid is difficult and doesn't want to learn, it's not slap him on the hand and make him learn. It's somehow soothe him, find what is going to connect with him. Is it comic books? Is it something else? Whatever. You got to reach the kid on his level so that he softens and opens his mind and is ready to listen and learn Torah. And this teacher was able to do that, and that's such a tremendous merit that when he prayed for rain on behalf of the community, his prayers were answered and answered forthwith. And the Gemara further relates, Rav Nachman decreed a fast, prayed for mercy, but the rain did not come. In his misery, he said, "Take Nachman and throw him from the wall to the ground, as the fast he decreed has evidently had no effect," and he grew upset. And then the rain came. So it seems like, even with people who merit that the rain should be provided, in their merit, because when they pray, just the fact that they pray may not be enough. It might also require that they, unburden their heart to God, right? Like the gate of tears is always open. There's nothing so perfect in God's eyes as a broken heart, right? In terms of being heard by God. When you kind of unload your brokenness to God, he hears your prayers all the more. And the Gemara relates, Rabbah decreed a fast. He prayed for mercy, but rain did not come. And they said to him, but when Rav Yehuda decreed a fast, rain would come. So he said to them, well, what can I do? If the difference between us is due to Torah study, right? If the difference between our generation and Rav Yehuda's generation is how much Torah is being studied in our generation, well, in fact, we are superior to the previous generation. As in the years of Rav Yehuda, all of their learning was connected to the order of Nezikim, right? So the Talmud is divided into six seders, right? 6 orders. There's like sort of like master chapters, right? So like the first order of the first seder of the Talmud, the first seder that they're talking about, the first order is Zerayim, seeds, and that includes tractate Brachas. And then the next order is Moed, which we're still in, which has to do with the days of the year, the holidays of the year, right? So he said that in the previous generation, they only studied the order of Nezikin, while they were largely unfamiliar with the rest of the Mishnah. And we, in our generation, says Rabbah, in our generation, we learn all 6 orders of the Mishnah. And when Rav Yehuda reached tractate Uktzin, which discusses the extent to which various fruits and vegetables are considered an integral part of the produce in terms of becoming ritually impure, which is the basis for the law that a woman who pickles a vegetable in a pot, etc. And some say that when you reach the law that olives that are pickled with their leaves are ritually pure, as they are no longer considered to be part of the fruit. So he would say, those are the disputes between Rav and Shmuel that we see here. In other words, in the previous generation, Rav Yehuda, whose prayers were answered when he prayed for rain, he felt that it was an extremely challenging passage, as difficult as the most complex arguments between Rav and Shmuel. But we, in our generation, says Rabbah, in contrast, we learn tractate Uktzin in 13 yeshivas, while with regard to miracles, after declaring a fast to pray for a drought to end, when Rav Yehuda would remove one of his shoes as a sign of distress, the rain would immediately come before he could remove the second shoe. And yet we cry out all day and no one notices us, right? So Rav is saying, what can I do? I mean, yeah, Rav Yehuda's prayers for rain were answered, and they were answered right away. I pray for rain, I'm not answered. What I've tried to do is make sure that we're all learning, Torah at a very high level, and we're learning at an even higher level than the previous generation. And yet, my prayers, when I declare a fast, our prayers for rain are not answered. I don't know what else to do. Rabbah continued, if the difference between the generations is therefore due to inappropriate deeds, well, if there is anyone who has seen me do anything improper, let him say so. Right? Is it my fault? Am I not righteous enough to be your leader and to be able to pray that our generation receives the rain that it needs? I am not at fault. But what can the great leaders of the generation do when their generation is not worthy and rain is withheld on account of the people's transgressions? Right? He's saying like we study, we do the best we can. We're learning at a very high level, even higher than the previous generation. I'm living a righteous life. I'm not doing anything wrong. The rain isn't coming because the people of our generation, their spiritual level has gone down. So what can we, the leadership, do? Now the Gemara explains the reference to Rav Yehuda's shoe. Rav Yehuda saw 2 people wasting bread, throwing it back and forth. And he said, well, I can learn from the fact that people are, using bread like a toy, that there must be, plenty in the world. There's plenty of food in the world. And he cast his eyes angrily upon the world, right? That people should be so cavalier with food that they use it like a toy. And he was angry at the world. And then there was a famine. And the sages said to Rav Kahana, the son of Rav Nehunya, the attendant of Rav Yehuda, the master, who is frequently present before Rav Yehuda, should persuade him to leave by way of the door nearest the market, so that he will see the terrible effects of the famine. Rav Kahana persuaded Rav Yehuda, and he went out to the market where he saw a crowd. And Rav Yehuda said to them, "What is this gathering?" And they said to him, "We are standing by a container of dates that are, dates like from a date tree, that is for sale." And he said, "Whoa, if so many people are crowding around to purchase a single container of dates, I can learn from this that there is a famine in the world." So he said to his attendant, "I want to fast over this. Remove my shoes as a sign of distress." He removed one of his shoes, and the rain came. When he began to take off the other shoe, right, he was going to take off his shoes, right, like he was going to, afflict himself not wearing shoes. So in addition to the fast, he would be afflicting himself. But as soon as he took off one of his shoes, the rain came. He had said he was going to take off his shoes, so now he starts to take off his second shoe. He removed one of his shoes and the rain came. When he began to take off the other shoe, Elijah, the prophet, came and said to him, "The Holy One, blessed be he, said, if you remove your other shoe, I will destroy the entire world so that you will not be further distressed." Right? So, what we're learning here is that, God is attached to all humans. But the really saintly people, God is even more attached to them. And when they become distressed over the condition of the world, God heeds their prayer. And if they're going to be so distressed, I'm sure this was an exaggeration from Eliyahu, from Elijah, that God is saying, don't take off your other shoes. Don't afflict yourself anymore. Because if you're going to be that afflicted, well, then this world is not worth preserving. I'm going to end it right now. Clearly Rav Yehuda didn't take off his second shoe and the world is still here. Now, Rav Mari, the son of Shmuel's daughter, said, "At that moment, I was standing at the bank of the Papa River, and I saw angels who appeared as sailors." Rav Mari, the son of Shmuel's daughter, so Rav Mari, the grandson of Shmuel through his daughter, he said, "At that moment, I was standing on the bank of the Papa River, and I saw angels who appeared as sailors, bringing sand and filling ships with it, and it became fine flour. And everyone came to buy this flour. But I said to them, 'Do not purchase this flour, as it is the product of miracles. Tomorrow, boats filled with wheat will come from Parzina, and you may purchase that produce.'" Again, we believe in miracles. We don't ever want to rely on miracles. And the Gemara relates another story. Rava happened to come to the city of Hagrunya, and he decreed a fast, but rain did not come, right? So the rains were late, and he decreed a fast. He said to the local residents, "Everyone, continue your fast, and do not eat tonight." The next morning, he said to them, "Whoever had a dream last night, let him say it." Rabbi Elazar of Hagrunya said to them, "Well, the following was recited to me in my dream. Good greetings to a good master from a good Lord, who in his goodness does good for his people." And Rava said, "I can learn from this that it is a favorable time to pray for mercy." He prayed for mercy, and then the rain came. And the Gemara relates another story that deals with prayer for rain. There was a certain man who was sentenced to be flogged by Rava's court because he had relations with a Gentile woman. Rava flogged the man, and he died as a result. When this matter was heard in the house of the Persian king Shapur, he wanted to punish Rava for imposing the death penalty, as he thought, without the king's permission. Now, Ifra Hormuz, the mother of King Shapur, said to her son, "Do not interfere and quarrel with the Jews, as whatever they request from God their master, he gives them." Who was Ifra Hormuz? Queen Ifra Hormuz was the mother of Shapur, the second king of Persia, from 309 to 379. Or I guess those were the dates that she lived. And since Shapur became king as a child, his mother maintained considerable influence over him for many years. Ifra Hormuz is mentioned on several occasions in the Gemara as an admirer of Judaism and its sages. She even gave money to several sages to distribute as charity and for the performance of mitzvahs. Now, Rava flogged this man and he died. I got to imagine that was an accident, or he had a pre-existing condition that wasn't understood. I mean, obviously, it was not meant to be a death penalty. It was just meant to be a flogging for a floggable offense in those days. So, King Shapur sought to have Rava executed, right, for creating a death penalty. His mother said, don't do it because God listens to the Jews. So King Shapur says to his mother, well, what is it that he grants them? What is it that God grants them? And she replied, they pray for mercy and rain comes. He said to her, this does not prove that God hears their prayers, as that occurs merely because it is the time for rain, and it just so happens that the rain falls after they pray. Rather, if you want to prove that God answers the prayers of the Jews, let them pray for mercy now in the summer season of Tammuz, and let the rain come now in the summer when it never rains. Ifra Hormuz sent a message to Rava, direct your attention and pray for mercy that rain may come, because otherwise you're going to die. Rava prayed for mercy, but the rain did not come. He said before God, Master of the universe, it is written, Psalm 44, O God, we have heard with our ears, our fathers have told us what work you did in their days, in days of old. You listened, you heeded the prayers of our ancestors. Please heed my prayer. But we have not seen it with our own eyes, said Rava. As soon as he said this, rain came, and not only did rain come, it came until the gutters of Mechoza overflowed and poured into the Tigris River. Rava's father came and appeared to him in a dream and said to him, is there anyone who troubles heaven so much to ask for rain when it's out of season? In his dream, his father further said to him, change your place of rest at night. He changed his place, and the next day he found that his bed had been slashed by knives. A murder attempt happened. I mean, there's so much going on in this story, I don't even know. Like, it's a story that begs to be expanded upon, right? You can make a whole movie here. So it seems like, okay, Rava was saved. He proved to the King Shapur that he could pray for rain on behalf of the Jews, and rain would come even in the summer. But then his father said, you shouldn't trouble God to bring rain out of season. Maybe he should have prayed just to have his own life saved rather than to trouble God to bring rain at any rate. But then his father also said, get up and move. It's dangerous where you are. And then, there was an assassination attempt. Perhaps assassins sent from King Shapur. I don't know. Rav Nachman bar Ushpasti said to him, if the master swallows another bowl of porridge, rain will come. He was mocking Rav Papa for eating while everyone else was fasting. And Rav Papa was embarrassed and grew upset, and then the rain came. Right? So Rav Papa decreed a fast. Everyone's fasting. But he's old and weak and he feels like he's going to die if he doesn't eat something. So for health reasons, he ate a little bit. And then he got scolded by another sage who said, everyone's fasting and you're eating. How can you do that? Now he became really embarrassed and he felt terrible and distressed. And he, said to God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But with that broken heart, that's when the rain came. And Rav Yosei, and the rain came. And the Gemara tells another story about prayer for rain. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was traveling along a road when it began to rain. He said before God, Master of the universe, the entire world is comfortable because they needed rain. But I am suffering because I'm getting wet. The rain stopped. When he arrived at his home, he said before God, Master of the universe, the entire world is suffering because the rain stopped. And I should be comfortable. And then the rain began to come again. Now, Rav Yosef said in reaction to this story, what effect does the prayer of the high priest have against that of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa? As we learned in a Mishna, after leaving the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, the high priest would recite a brief prayer in the outer chamber. And the Gemara asked, what would he pray? And Rav Adabar Ravin bar Ada and Rava bar Ada both say in the name of Rav Yehuda that this was the prayer of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur when he finished. May it be your will, Lord our God, that this year shall be rainy and hot. And the Gemara expresses surprise at this request. Is heat a good matter? On the contrary, it is unfavorable. Why would the high priest on Yom Kippur pray that the coming year should be hot? Rather, say that he said the following. If the coming year is hot, may it also be rainy and moist with dew, lest the heat harm the crops. And the high priest would also pray, and let not the prayer of travelers enter your presence. Meaning the travelers say, please don't let it rain on us while we're on the road. Like this story of Hanina ben Dosa. And Rav Acha, the son of Rava, in the name of Rav Yehuda, concluded the wording of this prayer, may the rule of power not depart from the house of Judea, and may your nation Israel not depend upon each other for sustenance, nor upon any other nation. That's just adding on what the high priest would say on Yom Kippur. Instead, they should be sustained from the produce of their own land. Evidently, with respect to the prayer for rain and travelers, the high priest's prayer that God should not listen to the prayer of individual travelers who don't want to be caught in the rain was disregarded in the case of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. And that concludes our reading for today in the colorful stories of sages who prayed for rain on behalf of the people. Sometimes they were answered, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they weren't answered until they really, poured out their heart to God, and God took pity on their distress in trying to achieve the rain that the people needed. All right, let's go to comments and questions. Okay. Bill, good grief. One wonders if Hashem didn't take the daughter back to the world of souls simply because, really, who would want such a dad? No comment. Okay, let me see. Let me check the comments over here. All right, let this reload. Nina was having so many glitches that she wasn't able to harvest the comments. Bill also says, worth noting, particularly that the Persians in that era were in the midst of a prolonged internal religious reform and revolution, and there were multiple movements trying to purge the lingering polytheistic and pseudo-polytheistic elements from the Zoroastrian faith. And one imagines that the queen, the mother of Shapur, would have been a supporter of one of those movements and perhaps saw in Judaism a natural ally. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Bill. Sharon says the famous Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto, Kalonymus Kalman Shapiro, wrote an amazing book on educating children before the war that stressed teaching a child with positivity and how they learn. An amazing book on pedagogy, I pronounced that right? Which all teachers should read. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, and that seems to be the end of the questions. And there was also a little off topic. Thomas said, does it matter which version of the Talmud you have? I bought a Talmud with commentary and also bought a Torah and Tanakh also with commentary. No, I mean, it doesn't matter. The one that I use, that I teach daily, is the Koren Talmud with commentary by Rav Steinsaltz, Aden Steinsaltz. But my first journey through the Talmud, I used the Art Scroll. Those are really the two that are sort of, useful and usable, state-of-the-art modern translations. There's also the Sansino Talmud, but that's 100 years old, that translation. And it's good for a lot of things, but, if you got to have one, certainly it should be the Koren or the Art Scroll. It's a big investment. You can also follow along in Sefaria, right? So, and it's basically the same translation that's in the Koran is available at sefaria.org. Okay, my friends, that's what I've got for us today. Please reach deep, enable us to build the AT app by supporting the annual campaign now. donate.accidentaltalmudist.org. I hope you all had a beautiful Hanukkah, and especially this last day, Zois Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah. It's over now. We can ask each other, did you have a nice Hanukkah? I hope you had a great Hanukkah. And now we start, hunkering down for the winter that is to come. But at least we've already reached the earliest that Shabbos comes in, and now already candle lighting starts to get a little bit later each week. 1 minute later than last week will be candle lighting this coming Friday. Have a beautiful evening. With God's help, see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, the regular daily time.